family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, have you read The Real Anthony Fauci, his book?
No, I haven't. I've heard him talk about it in several different interviews. Yeah.
If he hasn't been sued yet, and he hasn't been sued yet for it, like, does that mean it's true? I mean, he's got so many references in that book. If you read that book, just when they talk about what they did during the AIDS pandemic, holy shit, man.
Fauci's a very bad guy.
What they did, I mean, in the book, I mean, I don't want to paraphrase. I want to make sure I'm accurate about this, but they tested vaccines on foster kids, including babies. Like, when you read what they did during the pandemic, and it's spooky fucking shit. Also, like, the application of AZT as a treatment, that AZT was a chemotherapy medication that was killing people quicker than cancer. It's scary stuff, man. When he talks about Arthur Ashe, and Arthur Ashe taking AZT and dying very quickly afterwards, and that Arthur Ashe didn't even like have any symptoms before he got on medication. Yeah.
Well, it's I think one of the things that people, a lot of people have woken up to this over the last few years with all of the COVID insanity. And I think a lot of people have woken up to this over, say, the last 20 years of all the disastrous wars in the Middle East, is that it's very easy for them to just be like, oh, look, we have consensus amongst the expert class. You know, like, we have consensus amongst the scientists that we need lockdowns, and then we need these vaccine mandates, and we need all of this. And this is the science. The scientists agree.
Right.
But then once you actually, like, look into it a little bit, you realize that it's like, no, it's not that there's consensus amongst the scientists. It's that any scientist that doesn't agree with the consensus gets kicked out. Like, they all get excommunicated and silenced. And then, it's this completely corrupt group that is very involved with this money-making machine. And you're like, oh, there's such perverse incentives here. And so it's like, and the people realize this when, after time, it just gets demonstrated that what they were saying is wrong.
Yes.
Like, no one can argue anymore that if you get the COVID vaccine, you can't get or transmit COVID. No one's arguing that anymore, because it's just, you can't keep up that lie anymore.
And that was so quick.
Yeah.
It was so quick. I mean, that lie was being pushed on mainstream news just a couple of years ago.
Well, dude, me and you were like talking about this stuff. It's like, it seems like not really that long ago, right? That we were having like some conversations where there'd be these clips of what we were saying, and it would be like, look at this COVID misinformation. Yeah. And now you're like, let's look back at that. Yeah. The World Health Organization is now saying that the vaccine shouldn't be given to kids. And the thing you said that was so controversial that Fauci had to comment on it was, you were like, for young people, I don't know if I'd really tell you to take this vaccine. Just be really healthy. Say, like, eat really well, exercise, get a lot of sunlight. That was your dangerous misinformation that you were spreading. Like, let's put that up against. And at the same time, Fauci was saying, if you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. You can't transmit it. You're like, so who is spreading misinformation there?
Yeah, they knew it was misinformation because they had never tested it for transmission.
Yes, they knew it. The woman, I'm blanking on her name, but she was on the task force, the original task force in 2020. She's the lady who's always there at the podium with Trump and Fauci.
Birx.
Yes. She said, in like a kind of diplomatic way, but she was like, she goes, I always knew that it wouldn't prevent transmission, and I felt that we overreached when we were making that claim. And you're like, overreached? Lady, all of the policies that you put into place were built around that idea. The whole idea of vaccine mandates and vaccine passports and all of this was all predicated on the idea that it wasn't just your choice. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, you're choosing for your own health risk, that you were protecting other people. That was the whole idea that the whole thing was based on. If that's not true, then there was no justification for this. And millions of people lost their jobs over this.
Yeah.
Not to mention just the amount of people who were just like disenfranchised, like in major cities across the country. You couldn't go to a restaurant or couldn't go to a basketball game or whatever, which may seem less important than the ones who lost their job, but it's still fucked up.
It's all fucked up because it was also incentivizing people to go along with something that they might not have wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then when you see the amount of people that got damaged because of that, both financially, physically, vaccine injuries, ostracized from their communities, how many marriages broke up, how many friendships broke up. I know a lot of people that were skeptical about the COVID vaccine, and they were shamed by their friends, and they lost contact with those people. They stopped being friends with them.
I know a lot of people who whose mental health really deteriorated during the lockdowns as well.
Oh,
you know,
without a doubt. There's a lot of people that were already struggling before the pandemic, and that pushed them over the edge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really like, it's something to look back on it now a few years later and just like how crazy it was that we did this, like the lockdowns, that you were just like, people were at home watching TV to find out from their governor holding a daily press conference telling you what you're allowed to do today. Yeah. That was reality. And if you think about it from like a mental health point of view, what could be worse than to just be like, okay, listen, I want you to stay home. I don't want you to see your friends. I don't want you to go out to a game. I want you to stay home and be terrified of a floating abstraction that can come get you at any point. And on top of that, you're probably also going to be terrified about like your economic security, your financial future, like all of this stuff. It's like the worst thing you could do for people. So yeah, like you said, for people who are like on the edge already, yeah, that's
and then
really
there was
bad.
a lot of like old celebrities who were really terrified of it, who were just calling everybody a fucking moron for not taking it. You fucking idiots. You're going to ruin it all for everyone. Fuck your freedom. All that stuff. You remember that?
Yep.
All that shit is wild. It's so wild to see now.
Yeah, and I do think like my personal view is that I think like I think for the people at the very top, like I really do think there should be criminal charges. I think we should have Nuremberg type trials for what people did. I think it's one of the greatest crimes perpetrated on the American people by the government.
Especially if we funded the research that caused it in the first place.
Which we did. I mean, they can argue, no, we were funding other gain of function research at that same lab. But come on, man. We were funding the lab where this virus almost certainly came from. So, but just saying that at the top level, I think people should be prosecuted. They should go. Fauci should be prosecuted, clearly, at least for lying to Congress, if nothing else.
He out and out lied.
Straight up lied.
And now that's proven.
Yes. But then, like, for other people, like, you can't, I'm not saying everyone who supported the lockdown should, like, go to jail or something. We have to forgive people. But I do think there should be some process where, like, some type of reconciliation. But I don't think people should forget. Like, I don't think people, like, the thing you were just saying about Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that and all that. Don't forget what these guys were willing to jump on board with.
Yeah.
Like, and how much further would they have gone?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they pushed it pretty far and these guys were completely on board. Like, is it really that unthinkable to say if they were like, hey, we're going to round up the unvaccinated and put them into camps, take them away from their family, you know?
Yeah.
Is that?
I don't think so.
Some people would have gone along with it.